Good morning, everyone. Britt Simon here. Happy Saturday morning. I'm in California, so right here it's 8:30 in the morning. Hope you've had a good day wherever you are. So let's talk about your questions. I imagine I'm going to get some questions today about DV 2025. Is there any chance for that to continue? And the simple answer for that is no. DV 2025 is over. So if your case didn't get approved before the deadline on September 30th, midnight in your own local time on September 30th, then unfortunately your chance is gone forever. It cannot be resurrected. That means some of you will have been left, in fact, about over 2,000 people will have been left in 221G, which used to be called administrative processing. But those cases will just be left as they are, and it's quite frustrating. The government deliberately wasted about 5,000 visas in DV 2025. Really frustrating that they've done that, but they did it. And there's nothing we can do about that, right? Let me just show you. This will be the final numbers. There is going to be some adjustments going on in these numbers, so I just want to sort of capture as a sort of a snapshot these numbers. Let me just scroll up because Zarth always tells me off. Right. Okay. So these are the finishing numbers for DV 2025. 45,873 people plus these two. So 45,875 people were issued with visas. They scheduled about 20,000 people more than that. 9,500 or so cases were left in ready status. That, generally speaking, means that the case was arranged an interview, but they didn't turn up to that interview. I call those no-shows, right? 7,000, just over 7,000 people were refused, outright final refusal. That number is high compared to the number of people scheduled because of the travel ban. We always get refusals, we always get no-shows, and seeing this number at 9,000 is a little bit on the high side, but it's not ridiculously high. And the 7,000 for refusals is a bit on the high side, but not ridiculously high. We always get that, right? There are always going to be no-shows, there are always going to be refusals. It's just these numbers are fairly high in comparison to the 65,000 people or so that were scheduled. There are also 2,376 people left in 221G status. And again, they have no chance now of proceeding. So it's frustrating performance. There were 52,000 visas available. Less than 46,000 have been issued. About 1,000 will go through adjustment of status and are not included in these numbers. So they've wasted basically about 5,000 visas. Which is just frustrating as hell to me, but there's nothing we can do about it. They are not able to be held to account for underusing the visas. Not at the KCC level, not at the embassy level. This is just, they have the ability to do what they want. It's kind of frustrating. So moving on from DV25, and I'll jump to your questions in a moment. We've got now DV26 has started with 4 days in. I've already heard from people who've been issued visas. Interviews are arranged in October and November for various people, in various embassies. Some people have found that there is a glitch. I think most people have found there is a glitch actually with the 2NL system. So people's appointment letters are not showing up in the ESC page as they should be. Some people, though, have emailed KCC, and KCC have responded saying, hey, there is an interview arranged for you at your embassy, blah, 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 whichever embassy it is, on the 9th of November or whatever day it is. They don't give you the time of day for that interview, but they do tell you the date, which is pretty good information to have, right? It's important so that you can begin to get your medical booked, get all your documents together and so on. It would be far better if they would just fix the bloody system. And so people would have the actual 2NL, which is the interview notification that appears in your ESC page. That would be better, right? And without that, it's kind of frustrating, but you are probably going to see that 2NL before your interview date is reached. They're working on the system. I'm sure they're trying to fix those things. So, you know, if you're thinking you may have been scheduled, email KCC, see whether you've been scheduled or not, and they will probably give you one of those special emails. And they would rather not respond on respond on those special emails. It's more work for them. They would rather fix the problem, right? But the government are just sometimes slow to fixing the problem, right? Speaking of the government fixing the problem, some of you will be probably watching this live stream for the first time because you're from the UK and you've just found out that you're a winner in the DV 2026. You're welcome. The reason that happened was because of my lawsuit. You can go back and read about this. You can read the evolution of where this lawsuit came from. But basically, short explanation. I found myself in a position where I had probably the only possibility for anyone in the world to raise a lawsuit against the government. I mean, anybody could have done it, but nobody in their right mind would have spent the thousands of dollars I spent on it just for the chance of being selected, right? Nobody would have done that. But because I'm in a sort of a central position and I could represent everybody in the UK that was wronged by the government, I chose to launch this lawsuit. I did that. It cost me money. It cost me several $1,000s. Some kind people helped me cover the cost by contributing to a GoFundMe. That GoFundMe is still open if you want to help me, you know, from all of those costs. So you can sort of search that out and find Britt Simon's GoFundMe page if you like. That would be appreciated. Because yes, I mean, you know, I've spent the money knowing that I wouldn't personally benefit. I used my daughter's entry in DV 2025 to give me the standing in which to launch this lawsuit, and that fixed the problem for DV 25 applicants. And we suddenly had, you know, a couple of months ago, in early August the 8th, the government sort of made this announcement that they had selected people in the UK. At that same time, they were arguing with us that they hadn't done anything wrong, and you know, it was kind of surreal. And even once they made that announcement, they said that they hadn't done anything wrong in DV 26, and they clearly had, and I knew they had. I pointed out to them the problem in Cuba as well. They had selected Cuban selectees. They shouldn't have been selected. And now, lo and behold, the government have announced that for DV 26, everything I alleged in my lawsuit was correct. The Cuban selectees were selected incorrectly and now won't be able to process. And UK selectees had been left out. They've just announced that in the last couple of days, and they've informed a bunch of people that they are winners. However, they've informed, because they couldn't just, you know, leave it at one major screw up. They had to go and screw something else up again. They've now announced that there are winners from the UK up to about case number 200,000, which is just ridiculous. What they've done is they've multiplied by 4 the chances of people being selected in the UK, and that has meant that there's a longer number range of winners. Those winners in the top number ranges, really cases above 50,000, have little to no chance of getting their case current. There's a specific possibility that could make them all happy, but it seems very unlikely. So we don't really, we don't really have high hopes for a lot of those people, but cases under 50,000, you have a better chance, right, for those UK winners. Now, the cutoff of numbers will happen somewhere between, you know, where we are now at 750 and 50,000, I expect. That cutoff, though, won't happen until July of next year. So If you are a UK winner, you've got some difficult decisions ahead. Do you fill in the DS260 or not? If your case number 189,000, for example, should you bother filling in the DS260? Probably not, in all honesty. But we'll know more information over the coming weeks and months. So we're going to find out the selectee numbers probably now in the next visa bulletin. We'll get the selectee numbers by country and for the region, therefore. We'll see, therefore, how much over-selected this year is, and that will tell us, a bit more information that we need to know about whether or not EU is likely to go current. When a region goes current, it means every case number in that region is able to be interviewed, eligible to be interviewed, and that happens in some years, but it really means. It really means that there are more visas available than there are people who would want them. And that's only possible if they underselect the number of people in the lottery. If they've overselected, then they will implement a final cutoff number in the July, the visa bulletin that's published in July. And anyone above that number won't get any chance of interview. And that did happen in the last lottery process. The cutoff number in DV 2025 for EU was 23,000. Now, 23,000 was too low. Mathematically, they screwed that up as well. And they could have gone to about 30,000 or so. But still, it's not 50,000, and it certainly isn't 189,000, which is the highest case number I've heard of so far. And I've also got evidence that they've over-selected by 4 times, 4x the number of UK selectees. So they've screwed this up again. I mean, they've, unbelievably. Anyway, I've created some videos about that this week. You can go back and have a look at those videos if you want a more more detailed explanation. Okay, let's see. I think that's probably covered everything I wanted to say at the beginning, just as an introduction. Let me go through and take some questions, and we'll spend the next hour or so probably together just answering some of your questions. All right, let's see where we go. $1 payment should be done by the applicant own account, or it can be done by a secondary person also. The whole process for DV lottery entries can be done by a secondary person. You can have a friend or a family member or even an agent fill this in for you. I wouldn't suggest an agent typically, but there are some good agents out there. Let me just check something for a second. Yes, is this? No. I keep forgetting this gentleman's. I've got to find this because it's driving me nuts. I'm getting old. I'm 60-something years old, so I'm so old I can't even remember how old I am. But one of the problems with that is that my memory is like not as good as it used to be. Let's see. AmericanDream.de. Okay, so I want to give a shout out to an agent or an agency, AmericanDream.de. They're an organization based in Germany, I believe, but they are an agent who is one of the good ones. Here's how I differentiate between agents, good ones and bad ones. A good agent will help you fill in the DV lottery process, and in the case of the $1 fee, for example, they would probably help you in making that payment, right? A good agent will immediately give you your confirmation number and all of your details. Also, a good agent will enforce you providing a new photo every year, because the photo should be replaced every year. But most critically, they'll give you your confirmation number. A bad agent will let you fill in the lottery process with them, etc., probably all around the year, even though the entry period is only in October of each year, October and early November. And the badge agent won't give you your confirmation number, which means that if they then find out that you're a winner, they have your magic lottery winning number, and they can easily turn around and blackmail you to get your own lottery winning number, right? And that has happened, I can't tell you how many times, but thousands of times. There are thousands of people, and there are people every year that get scammed by bad agents that do exactly that. collect your details, they enter the lottery for you, you win, and then they don't give you the winning details. So you aren't really a winner unless you pay them an extra $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, right? So don't use bad agents, only use good agents. In terms of this question, though, the $1 payment. So the reality is the government haven't published yet the instructions or the entry dates for DV 2027. They probably have delayed that so they can implement this $1 payment thing. But taking a $1 charge or taking any charge from every country around the world is very difficult to do. I've got a friend who works a Google payment system. He and I were talking about this the other day. Very difficult to do. I'm about to implement a payment system for photos, and I'm using a system called Stripe. And even with Stripe or with Google, I can't take payments from every country around the world directly. So there will have to be in some countries some sort of system where perhaps at internet cafes or something like that, somebody has got a debit card where they can pay the $1 for you and you can pay them. So it's going to have to be some sort of system like that in some countries. But certainly, yes, any friend, family member, anyone else like that could pay the money for you. Exactly how it will work, nobody knows yet, right? And so please stop listening to these bullshitters that that are out there on the net. There's a website, for example, DV Lottery USA or something. Constant bullshit at that website. Constant bullshit, and a legitimate looking website. And but if you go to that website, this guy says the lottery period is open right now. Hasn't noticed the fact that it hasn't opened now. I deal with this sort of bullshit all the time from people that just make stuff up. Drives me nuts. But anyway, so that's enough about the $1 fee. We'll have to wait for the instructions. We'll have to wait for the actual payment process. But I'm 100% sure that they're not going to have implemented it for every single country. There are some African countries where payments are made by phone minutes rather than currency. The currency in those countries is based on phone minutes. Their system's not going to cope with that. So, yeah, good luck with that. Ahmed, you're one of those 221G cases in, sucks. I'm sorry. Hey, Joe's Tucson. Hi. Good to hear from you as well, Leon. Let's see. Can the government shutdown delay DV27? Good question. I don't think it will. There is a delay, obviously, for the entry period, but that I think is because of the $1 payment thing. I don't think it's anything to do with the shutdown. In fact, if you look at the timeline, the announcement was already late when the shutdown came in, if you see what I mean. It was already delayed. They would normally have announced the lottery period about the 25th, 26th of the month of September, and the shutdown didn't happen until midnight on the 30th. So there was a delay anyway, and the delay I think was to do with the with the $1 payment or the passport rule, if that comes in as well. But your question is, can the government shut down now further delay it? I mean, technically it could, I suppose, but I don't think it will. Number one, I don't think the shutdown will last very much longer. I think it'll be probably over in the next week or so. Trump has pushed this before. He's had shutdowns before. And Trump is a stubborn and vindictive man, of course. And so they're trying to blame the Democrats for this whole thing, even though Republicans have got the power in the House, in Congress, in total, in the Senate, and they've got the presidency. So they're blaming the Democrats. It's a bloody foolish thing, but some people are stupid enough to believe that. So yeah, we have to wait and see when this can get figured out. But things like the DV lottery are not funded on a day-to-day basis through the government funding. There are some parts of the government that still run. And DV lottery in particular is a part where the fees that you pay, the $330, is actually what funds the process. And so the embassies continue their work and they're unaffected by the shutdown. The DV lottery processing unit, KCC, is unaffected by the shutdown because they are funded by these fees. And so there shouldn't be an impact of the shutdown to the DV lottery. It would happen eventually, like if there was a 2-month shutdown or something, which is unheard of. But if there was a 2-month shutdown, then departments that support KCC doing background checking and that sort of thing, those departments would run out of money or would have stopped working, and therefore those other effects could begin to impact DV lottery, but not directly through KCC or the embassies. Okay. Charlotte, I'm a UK applicant. You've been, you've been added. So congratulations, Charlotte. You're added because of my lawsuit. Hope that worked out well for you. The real question is, what's your case number, Charlotte? Because if your case number is higher than 50,000, you've probably got a frustrating few months ahead of you. There are lots of UK winners, 4 times more than there should be. And they've messed that up. I've written extensively about this on my blog. I've produced videos over the last couple of days that explain the numbering system and so on. And I'm getting lots of messages from UK winners that I'm answering as fast as I can on my blog. My blog is britsimonsays.com. Okay, so you say you're filling in your DS260. Stop. There is kind of you do need to consider your case number before you submit your DS260. If you submit a DS260 and you never become interviewed, then your submission of the DS260 will have declared immigrant intent. It would have shown the government that you have intention to immigrate into the USA. That can make future non-immigrant visas harder to obtain. It's not a complete no-no in terms of, you'll never get a visa to come to the USA. And it shouldn't even affect ESTA, which is primarily how UK and people come over to the USA. Shouldn't affect ESTAs at all. It also doesn't affect a visa or an ESTA that you already hold. And so it's not really a problem until you go for something like an F1 visa or a J1 visa or an not an H1. H1's okay, but various visa types that you might go for in the future, right? So think about your case number. If your case number is 50,000 or below, yeah, you can probably go ahead and fill it in. If your number is 30,000 or below, you probably should fill it in because you've got a good number. But if your case number is above 50,000, then I would hold off until we've got more information if I were you, Charlotte. Okay? Let me know what number you've got. When will the DV lottery will start, and will the passport be required? 2 great questions, and I don't have an answer. I don't know the day that the lottery will start, and I don't know whether the passport rule will be implemented. If you want a bullshit answer, there are plenty of bullshitters out there on the internet that will give you a bullshit answer, but I'm not going to do that. I don't know is my answer. Okay. Hello, Simon. Is your lucky boy who asked you many silly questions. Ahmed came to Las Vegas, Nevada, 18th September. Thanks God and your support. Congratulations. Welcome to America. Thank you for stopping by and saying hello. Good luck, Ahmed. Be careful to follow my advice about money, please. Don't get yourself into debt. You're in Las Vegas, Nevada. Lots of money flying around there, right? Lots of opportunity, lots of money. Also lots of ability to go borrow money, like, and car loans and all sorts of stupid things. People in America, Americans in general, do life wrong. And they get themselves into debt. 80% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. It's a ridiculous situation. And the difference is those people that realize that you have to earn more money than you spend, and they save some of that money, those people do well here. If you've got money, this is a great place to live, right? But in order to get money, you have to not spend all the money you've got, right? And also you need to make sure you don't borrow money so that you're financing banks and lenders, etc. So, don't go out there and buy a fancy car unless you're wealthy already. Congratulations if you're wealthy already. But don't go out there and buy a fancy new car because some dopey car salesman tells you that everybody has a $700 or $800 a month car payment. That is the guaranteed way to keep yourself poor. So don't do that. Okay. All right. Yeah. Watch my advice about money. I've actually done pretty well somehow. I don't know. Despite my best efforts to go screw my life up in my early days, I somehow managed to be fairly good with money during the latter days, and have done okay. So I can give you some good advice. Okay. Do you think the 4 or 5 times higher entries on the UK on DV26 you've described as a knock-on effect of the UK's potential eligibility for DV27? Okay, so Blaggers, a little bit of an incorrect statement there. I'm not saying that there were 4 or 5 times higher entries. I'm saying there are 4 or 5 times, probably 4 times, higher number of selectees than there should be. Roughly speaking, rough numbers, the chance of selection in this lottery process should be something like 1%, right, for EU countries. So if 10,000 people entered the lottery, roughly 100 selectees, if 10,000 people, cases, had entered the lottery, which would be about 20,000 people in reality, right? So it's 10,000 cases with their derivatives, so with the spouses and with the kids, right? So 10,000 people enter the lottery. 1% chance of selection should mean that about 100 of those people are selected, 100 of those cases, which would lead to about 200 selectees. When we see the selectee number, we're going to see a number that's probably 4 to 5 times higher than that in terms of the selectees. But that's not. I'm not saying the entries were higher. I'm saying that the selectees were higher, right? And the reason I know that is because of the cases that I know, and I know of about 200 cases where I've got their confirmation code and so on. Of those, I'm getting about a 1 in 20 hit rate, meaning roughly 4 to 5 times higher than we should have, right? In other words, if I checked 100 cases, I should normally only get something like 1 winning case, and I'm getting 4 or 5 cases from that 100 entries. That's nuts. I know of an agent that had 80 cases and got, I think, 4 winners. So 1 in 20 on their cases, right? It's nuts. So it's a higher percentage chance of selection. How has that happened? Have they messed with the process somehow? No. All they've done is it's the normal process with the normal chance of selection. Remember, this is all a random assignment of your number. This is a random process, right? All they've done is they've continued drawing or announcing winners for the UK up to about 200,000, whereas the rest of Europe is cut off at about 50,000. That's where the 4 times it comes from. We've got 4 times more selectees in the UK than we should have. But those people with case numbers above 50,000 or so are, they've got the number is too high. In fact, we'll have to wait and see the selectees, but I don't think even case number 50,000 is going to get a chance, right? Like I say, it cut off at 23,000 last year. Now, the next part of your question is, will it have a knock-on effect to the UK's potential eligibility for DV27? No, not at all. The eligibility of a country, whether it can participate in the lottery or not, is based on a defined formula to do with the previous 5 years of immigrant entries from that country. All right. If that number, the combined total of all of the immigrant entries for that country, if that number is above 50,000, then the country becomes ineligible for the DV lottery. The DV lottery is diversity visa lottery. DV means diversity. And diversity meaning if your country already sends 200,000 people a year, then there is no point in adding you to this DV lottery. You've got plenty of immigrants, thank you, from your country. And so the answer, the reality is that whether a country is eligible or not is purely based on that mathematical formula, nothing to do with how many people actually enter from that country. It's to do with how many people live in that country and how many people immigrate to the US from that country over the previous 5-year rolling window. the UK's numbers took a dip in COVID times, and it took them just below that 50,000 number. Roughly around about 10,000 people a year over 5 years is the 50,000 number, right? In order to get back above that number of 50,000, the UK would have had immigrant numbers of around about 12 or 13,000, I think about 12,500 immigrants during the previous year, 2024 fiscal year. We don't have that number yet because the government again have screwed something else up and they haven't published those numbers yet. Bless them. And because we don't know that, I can't be 100% sure that the UK is in for DV 2027, but my gut says they will be. Okay, because I don't think they'll have increased the numbers. The average has been averaging out about 9,000 per year, so that's why they would need to go to that 12,500 number in that 1 year, 2024. And 2024 wasn't a big immigration year, so I don't think it's going to be big for the UK either. Therefore, I'm going to suggest that that the UK will remain eligible for DV 2027. And that's one of the reasons I filed the lawsuit, was because I knew DV 25 was broken. I knew DV 26 was broken. I didn't want DV 2027 to continue to be broken because the UK has got this limited period of time where it's eligible for the lottery, and I wanted it to be able to be processed. Okay. So anyway, I hope that's a complete answer for you. Hi, Britt, when will it be? You've already asked that question. About the government shutdown. Already talked about that. I have a question about the government shutdown, its effect on DV Lottery 26. Yeah, I've already answered that. Hi, Simon. Do you think the shutdown? Well, a lot of you want to know about the shutdown. I had a banned country, but I had a non-banned. Oh, hang on. I had from banned country, but had other non-banned got interviewed 10th September, issued next day, 11th September. Good. So I'll read. Yeah, okay. I mean, you're the Las Vegas guy. So yes, you had 2 passports. Under the travel ban, having a second passport is about the only realistic way you've got of getting an exemption. And so you had a second passport, and that's how you got through. So congratulations to you for having that second passport from the non-banned country. That saved your bacon. There have been a few exemptions granted based on sort of religious minority grounds, for example, in certain countries, but not many. The only real exemption that's realistic for anybody is the second passport. Okay. Okay, let's see. Taban says, hi Simon, my high school diploma was taken in 2009 with my old ID card, which I now have a new ID card, which contains last name, but it doesn't match with school diploma. That's okay. Your diploma matched your name up until the point where you took the school, right? Took that education. Then presumably you changed your name through marriage or through some other process. And you've got legal paperwork that establishes when and how and why you changed your name later, right? So in other words, you've got your birth certificate, which would have your original name. You have some documentation showing you went to school with this name, and then you changed your name later. All of that can be shown and proven in the interview. It's not a problem. The only thing that you've got to do is make sure that the consular officer believes that your education document is your document, not somebody else's, right? It's not the education document that proves your name or your date of birth or anything else like that. Your date of birth comes from the birth certificate. Your name comes from your birth certificate, or it can be updated by a marriage certificate and so on, right? So, it's the education document is only important insofar as saying it's your education document that you're showing, okay? No news on DV27 yet. Hope you're doing fine. Was asking about the photo tool, when it will start to function. Tomorrow is when it's going to start to function. I'm soft launching it tomorrow. So it's taken a bit longer than I'd hoped. We originally thought we were going to be launching it at the beginning of September. The payment system has been difficult, and also, just the technology. It's a pretty ambitious project, frankly. So I'm soft launching it tomorrow, and yeah, come back and hear about that tomorrow, probably tomorrow or Monday. Okay. My case number is 4000 from Afghanistan. I submitted my DS-260 in September. When will I be interviewed? Okay, so your interview depends on three things, right? Number one, your DS-260 must be processed. Number two, your case number must be current. And number three, your embassy has the capacity to take your case and any cases in front of you, right? You're from Afghanistan and you only submitted your DS-260 in September. That probably means your DS-260 is not processed yet. And it probably won't be for a little while because there would have been a backlog of cases before you where they're working through that backlog of cases. You're also from Afghanistan, and so there's good reason from the government's point of view to check your background as carefully as possible to make sure you weren't mixed up with the Taliban and all that sort of stuff, right? And so you can probably expect that your DS-260 will take a little while to process. I mean, it's possible it could go through quickly, but it's more likely that it will take time. Then your case number is current, but I don't know which embassy you're at, right? I don't know whether your embassy is taking cases or not. If you're at Islamabad, which is the most likely place for Afghans to interview, they're usually doing pretty well, but I can't be specific. I can't be really clear. So you have to be patient, okay? Just be patient, all right? American Life Choir, something. Watching you from Rwanda. Someone love you and your programs. I know one day I'll go through. Good luck to you. I hope keep trying, keep entering, and yeah, hopefully one day we'll be having a conversation about your case. I'd look forward to that. Yes, that's me. Thanks for your efforts. You're welcome. I'm a bit affected by the DV 2026 debacle. Got through with crazy high case number. If I do the initial form, can my husband still enter DV27? He didn't get through for 2026. Thanks for helping us. Ogbod, you can both enter for DV27, and I suggest you do. There's no harm in that. Like, just because you're processing DV 2026, although you probably should understand what I'm saying about high case numbers, but just because you're processing DV26 doesn't mean you can't enter DV27. You can both enter, okay? And I would go ahead and do that. Now, if your case number is higher than 50,000, you probably want to think about what I said earlier about immigrant intent and whether you want to complete the DS-260 or not, okay? We'll be finding out more information over the next, I think we're going to get selectee numbers in the next visa bulletin because they've held off in two visa bulletins where they would normally have published the selectee numbers, which would show us how many people are selected in the world and also in Europe and in the UK and so on. They held off on those things because that information was useful to me in my lawsuit, right? And so they were going to go and publish this information, and I was going to say, hey, look, you've just proven that you've screwed up because you've got Cuban selectees in there and you've not got any UK selectees. So they've held off for 2 months and not published that selectee data. Now they've done the correction to adding the UK selectees, and they've told Cubans that they're not eligible. And so now they can go and fix the numbers that they'll then publish in the visa bulletin. So I suspect that we're going to see the selectee numbers in the next visa bulletin. And I suspect the reason we didn't see that in the last 2 months is because of my lawsuit, and because it would have given me more clear evidence that my allegations was right. But stupid government thing to do anyway, because I was obviously right, and they've admitted I was right in DV25, and now they've admitted I was right in DV26. So, giving me that extra evidence, I mean, yes, it would have been nice for me. It would have made my life easier, but I don't know. I don't know how they think sometimes. I really don't. It's nuts. But anyway, I'm DV26 AF13K, submitted my DS-260 on May 27th, but till now KCC says my DS-260 is still being processed. Is there a reason for it taking so long? Jordan, I don't know where you're from. You say AF13K, but I don't know what country you're from. Generally speaking, even if two cases had submitted their DS-260 on May 27th, you and a friend of yours, who comes from an identical country and maybe has a very similar background, but has a slightly different name. In that situation, your friend might have been processed by now, and your case hasn't been processed. The reasons for that is that there are many. It can be your name matching somebody on the terrorism watch list, for example. It can be that you're from a country that doesn't cooperate very well with America, and so background checking takes longer for that country. It can be that the country is cooperative but has got poor record keeping, and that makes it take longer. It can be that you've had travel history or work history that is somehow risky. Travel history, for example, in the Middle East, or you're a nuclear weapons scientist or something. And so your work history also sort of rings alarm bells. So there are various things about you, or about where you come from, or where you've traveled, or what work you do, or your social media, all sorts of things that can contribute to your case needing a little bit more time to process. It's not really a problem. It's just delaying you a little bit, but we've got a long period here. I mean, there's 12 months. We're only in the second month of interview scheduling, right? We're 4 days into a 12-month year, right? So there's no real reason for you to be panicking at the moment. Just relax about it, and I'm sure in due course it'll be processed. Okay. What does it mean that I have to do DS260? Is it positive, Charlotte? Yeah. So, all right. So again, you're the UK applicant. Let's think about your case number first, Charlotte. But basically, the process for DV lottery is not. I remember when my wife and I won, right? This was back in 2013. I get this selected letter, and I'm like phoning the wife saying, "Hey, you've been selected. Well done, you," because she was from Spain, by the way. So my wife was able to enter the lottery because she was chargeable to Spain. I said, "Well done, you. You've been selected. You better pack your bags. We're going to America," right? This was in May of 2013, whereas I was a DV 2014 case. So it was going to be almost a year and a half before we got our green cards through the lottery. And so it was, we didn't know what the hell we were doing. But the process is you get selected, you fill in this form called a DS260. It's an online form. The DS260 is an application for an immigrant visa. You go through that whole process. KCC then process that. You get scheduled for an interview based on when your case number, on your case number. It's ordered roughly by your case number. You interview. All of this takes a long time, but the first part of this is to complete the DS260. But only do that if your case number is significantly low. If it's a high case number above 50,000, again, Charlotte, just be a bit cautious. And in general, I would say to anybody who wins the DV lottery is not a guaranteed green card in your hand, as I thought it was all those years ago. I thought it was like you win the lottery and they send you a green card the next day kind of thing. No, it's not like that. It takes a long time, and many people don't get an interview. They don't get through. In DV 2025, for example, 43,000 people were selected. Only 16,000 from the EU region, and I'm talking about. Sorry, I'm giving EU numbers. 43,000 people were selected from the EU, and only 16,000 of those actually got their visas issued, right? So there's a high chance that you won't get a green card through the DV lottery process, even though you're a selectee. And so don't go running around town telling everyone you're moving to America next week, because that's not that's not how it's going to work, right? And you'll be embarrassed and you'll be regretful if you go around telling your family and making all sorts of changes. Don't go sell the car or quit your job or do anything like that, because you've got a long time to wait before you can go through and get interviewed. And it will all depend on your case number and so on. And you have to confirm that you meet the requirements and everything else, right? So just chill. And I've got a mountain of information you can read on BritSimonSays.com. I've got 400 videos you can watch if you want to watch 400 videos of me talking nonsense. But you can go ahead and learn about the process. But the main thing is, Charlotte, do tell me your case number. And I think we can have a more sensible conversation about that. You don't have to give me the case number exactly, by the way. You just say roughly, 100, you know, it's 43,000 or 143,000 or whatever it might be. Looking good, Simon, says Raymond. Thank you, Raymond. Oh, feeling good. Have you noticed I've been cycling recently? I've lost a few pounds. Divine 12. Hi, Simon. Thanks for everything. I'm DV26 EU 17,500. What do you think, especially with the UK winners? The fact that there are UK winners to going up to 189k does not make your 17,500 case number better. By the way, that's not how it works. It represents the screw up on the UK winners in selecting case numbers that high. But your case number at 17,500 is good. There's no doubt about that. Last year was pretty much disastrous by seeing the cutoff happen at 23,000. The year previous to that, the cutoff came at 50,000. And so, you know, 23,000 was nuts. But I don't think there's a year in the example where the case number of EU 17,500 hasn't got current, right? So you're probably good. Of course, we have to sort of watch what the government does. The government are not legally obliged to give away all these visas. We've just seen that, right? And so they can do something like having a cutoff number at EU 23,000 was legal and legitimate, but stupid because it just meant that they were going to, you know, miss out giving away a bunch of visas that could have been used. So, oh, there you go. There's someone who's got lots of love for me. Please, oh, and you're right, Raymond. Please like the video, guys. You're right. Please like the video. Do you get confirmation after you unlock the DS260? When you email KCC to unlock, and you do so, by the way, by sending your email, and it's got to have your name, your full name, your full case number, and your full date of birth in month, day, year order, right? Month, day, year, right? That's the normal sort of format. Your case number has to include the leading zeros. Okay, so that's like EU 2026 EU 000 right? It's got to include that 000 at the beginning of before the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's what I mean when I say the leading zeros. Okay, so you email KCC with those 3 bits of information: your name, your full case number, and your date of birth in the right format. And you simply say, hey, I'd like to unlock my case. They will, generally speaking, they unlock within about 24, 48 hours if it's a working day. So during the week, Monday through Friday is their working days. And they then send you an email saying that your case is unlocked, your DS260 is unlocked. You can also see in the DS260 system, a locked case shows completed. Whereas if it's not, if it doesn't say completed, then it's unlocked, right? And you can edit it. You can go into a locked DS260 and you can review the data, but you can't make any changes. But if it, if it says completed, it's locked. If it doesn't say completed, then it's not locked, and you can go in and make the changes. Okay. Do you think the delay in the DV27 has an impact on the passport requirement? I think you asked that the wrong way round. I think the passport requirement may be one of the things that's delaying the announcement of DV27, possible, or it may just be the $1 fee being added to the instructions and to the system. That's possible too, but we don't really know. Okay. When will DV26 start? It started. I think you probably mean when will DV27 start? Don't forget, we're now in DV26. DV26 started on 1st of October, 4 days ago, and it will run until September 30th of next year, which is 2026. So the fiscal year, and some people think I'm saying the physical year. No, I'm saying fiscal year. The fiscal year runs from the 1st of October to the 30th of September, and that's the US government fiscal year, okay? And so the fiscal year will end on 30th September 2026. That's the period of time when DV26 is going. DV27 entry period will be in the next few days, probably announced, and it will run for about a month or so. And that is for people who will be told they're winners or not winners or whatever in May of next year. Okay, so there you go. Karina, many Bob. Great job, Britt Simon. Now we have UK selectees through though the case number look ridiculously high. Does it mean that other regions with high case numbers also may go current, or there may be a high cutoff number for this year? The UK numbers has no impact on any other region. It doesn't, just because the numbers have gone higher in the UK does not mean that the numbers for Africa or Asia are looking more realistic now because they're less than the stupid numbers we have in the UK. We're only, the UK numbers, we're only talking a few hundred people being selected. You know, it's just not that big of an impact. And the case numbers for other regions are entirely unaffected by the action that's just happened because of the lawsuit in the UK selectees. Okay, so no. We love Jesus. Okay. Hello, Britt. After getting admitted to a university and winning DV after that, is it possible for the winner to pay tuition as a permanent resident immediately after getting the green card? Yes and no. The rules vary by state and by university or college. For some states and some universities, to get an in-state residence tuition rate, you have to be resident in that state for a year. Thank you, Annie. A year or 2 years, right? So just because you get a green card doesn't make you immediately able to get the lower rates of tuition. But those rules vary by state, and you really need to check with your own college what the situation is. There are some states where you can get a more immediate sort of preferential treatment. And also, don't forget, there are some states where the tuition rates are multiple. So one is a local resident, meaning you're a resident of that state. Another is a out-of-state tuition, right? Which means, let's say I live in California and my kid wants to go to college in New York City or something. That would be out of state. And then there's a third level, which is international, right? And as an international student coming to some colleges in the USA with with a visa, you would pay a higher rate as an international student than being an out-of-state student, and that's much higher again as a local resident, right? So, you need to look into it with your own college to be really sure, okay? Raymond just talking about the photo app, be tomorrow. Yeah, fingers crossed. I'm sort of like wrestling with the developers at the moment, but yeah, we're talking about soft launching it tomorrow. Do you think DV27 will be roughly around October 16th? And when will be your photo app be ready roughly? Will it be ready before DV27 begins? Yes, it'll be. My photo app will be ready before DV27 begins. The photo app is good, is cool, because as well as doing the normal job that other photo apps do, which is where you can take a photo and it removes the background and creates a nice photo for you, it then runs through, my photo app runs through a bunch of checks using AI, which are applying the same rules as the government apply to reject a bunch of entries, right? People often wonder why there are so many holes in the case numbers for DV lottery. The holes are between the numbers. The numbers are not every case number is a real case. There are lots of holes, lots of gaps, right? And the largest single reason why those holes exist is because of bad photos. It's unbelievable, really, that people are making this sort of level of mistake. But I have first-hand evidence that people make silly mistakes with their photos all the time. And so my photo app will check to reduce those silly mistakes. I mean, it's also going to produce a nice photo, same as other photo apps, at about half the price of the other photo apps. So, I feel like I'm doing a good job on the price. I'm at least doing the same job as the other photo apps. But additionally, I'm then running the photo through a bunch of AI checks to make sure that you're not wearing glasses, to make sure you're not smiling, to make sure that your head's not crooked, to make sure your eyes aren't shut, and there's no crazy shadows and stuff. So AI, we've used AI to make sure that all the rules that would normally cause that photo to be accepted by the entry system but rejected during the draw, all those other things are being looked at so that it doesn't ruin your chances of selection. So I highly advise people to use the photo app that we're about to release. It'll cost a few dollars for each photo. There's a discount for if you're doing a family. The first photo will be one price, and then there'll be a discount for the second and subsequent photos. So it's frankly it's cheaper than going to a photo parlor sort of thing. Photographer. It's cheaper than that, and it's cheaper than every other photo app that we've looked at. So, but I'm not at all unaware that money is tight all around the world, and a few dollars is a few dollars. I get it. I wish I could make it a free app, but we've invested a lot of money. I have to recuperate some of those costs, right? Okay, so believe me, it's not about age. I'm 31 and my memory's going nuts. Yeah, thank you, Raymond. That makes me feel better. I'm about 30 years more than you, but yeah, I don't know. I used to remember things better. I can't remember when I used to remember things better, but I'm sure I did. Can DV26 selectee or his spouse can fill up DV27? Yes, both of them can. Did DV24 overselect? Its numbers for Europe went to 50K. I'm glad you asked this question. This is a great question to have a look at because it is kind of relevant. Let me just, let me do it. It is kind of relevant to the answers I'm giving for the UK applicants in particular, because they won't understand. When they see the visa bulletin went to 50,000, they won't understand. Okay, let me show you a couple of things. Firstly, let's have a look at what you're saying there to see if what you're saying is true. It is true, but I just want to show it. What am I doing? Not that. Oh, no, don't want to go in there. So Brit Simon, Brit, oh my God. Brit Simon says .com and not that. I don't want to answer questions. I want to just look at the back end. Right, front end rather. Okay, visa bulletin numbers. So historically, DV24 numbers for Europe. This is Europe. So I've been collecting the visa bulletin numbers and plotting them on this chart for years. And in DV25, for example, that's what I was saying earlier, where the number cut off for Europe at 23,000, right? You can see the progression of numbers went to 22,000 in August, and we were all like, yeah, it looks like we're going to get close to 30,000. And then they just increased by 1,000 numbers for September and pissed everyone off. There were 43,000 people selected in EU in DV25, and 131,000 plus the extra UK selectees selected for the globe as a whole, right? And I've got the same numbers here for Africa and Asia and so on. You can see that, right? Okay. Now, here's big ad. Why have we got a big ad? Right. Now, you're asking about DV24. And you were saying, well, the last number went to 50,000. You're right, it was. And there were 50,000 people selected. That 50,000, by the way, is not the same as this 50,000. That 50,000, let me just bring up a spreadsheet here. I got that. Yeah. I'll just bring up a spreadsheet that shows you some of these numbers, case analysis. Yeah. This is how I track the numbers. This is what I do internally. I don't often show this spreadsheet, but so for EU region, there were 40,000 selectees in DV23, 50,000 in DV24, and 43,000 in DV25. So 50,000 was, a high point. In DV25, those 43,000 winners were on 20,220 cases, right? So roughly speaking, the derivative rate was about 2.1, 2.2, something around about that. The highest case number in DV2025 that was assigned, not current, but assigned, was 41,009, right? The highest case number in DV24 that was assigned, not current, but assigned for EU is about 56,000, right? So you're correct in saying it went to 50,000, right? But let's have a look at the data. Let's have a look at what happened with the numbers between 30,000 and 50,000, because my mathematical prediction, I did a mathematical prediction in January of 25 to say where the case numbers should get to by the end of the year. And I was saying the danger range was starting at around about 27,000, but I was hoping that it would be more like 28, 29, or even 30,000, right, for EU. And I'm talking just about EU. I made a video for each of the regions. I made predictions for each of the regions, and my predictions were actually accurate, more accurate than the government's running of the system. They ran the system badly. That's not my fault in terms of predictions, but the predictions were mathematically correct. But if we look at 24, right? So now I'm looking at 24 data, and I switch to this chart shows the number of cases. If I switch to the EU view of the world, this blue color here is holes, right? So this is every 1,000 cases. From case number 1 to 1,000, there's 1,000 case numbers. But of those case numbers, 47.6 or 476 cases were holes, right? What's a hole? They're the cases that are rejected because of their photos or fraud, right? And so it's like we're, almost half of the cases at the beginning were holes, right? So between 1 and 1,000, you can see that roughly speaking, about 40% of the overall 1,000, about 400 cases out of the nearly, 530 cases in that first 1,000 were interviewed, or at least scheduled for interviewed and issued, right? Now, look at the case numbers above 30,000. So if we look at, let's say, between 40,000 and 50,000, you can barely see, but there are some cases there. There are 0.3% of the cases were issued, 0.1% were ready, so 0.4% of the cases. And I can tell you that for example, between 40,000 and 50,000, there were 2,405 actual real cases. That, that's the sort of the total of all of these cases without the holes, right? 2,405. I know this number because I already answered a question on this morning. I don't normally carry this data around in my head. But of those 2,405 cases that were between 40,000 and 50,000 in EU, guess how many cases got scheduled for interview? 47. 47 of those cases. Why only 47? Well, it's because the embassies weren't able to take that additional capacity. When they went from 30,000 to 50,000, it was what I call a Hail Mary. It was bullshit. The embassies were not able to release enough interview slots to service all of those people. So by the time we got to 35,000, it was a rare thing to actually get an interview. Even though you were current, it was not likely that you were going to get an interview. And above 40,000, forget it. 47 cases out of those 10,000 or 2,405 actual case numbers, but that 10,000 case number range, only 47 cases, right? So, yes, it was over-selected. To answer your question, it was over-selected by a lot. DV24 had 50,000 selectees. It had case numbers up to 56,000 in EU for those 50,000 selectees, because 47.6%, at the beginning, and a higher percentage of that overall were holes, right? A lot of those cases were holes. Yes, its numbers went to 50,000, but the 50,000 number was bullshit. It shouldn't have gone to 50,000. It should have stopped. I think my prediction in that year was something like 33,000 or 32,000. And I was right. Again, I was correct. The government fucked up. Quite frankly, they didn't know what they're doing. I wish they would just listen to me. It would be a lot better if they would let me run this thing, but I don't want to work for the government, so that's not going to work. Anyway, are there any updates with the interview process? My friend is a winner, and the embassy called him and said that he does not have to bring the medical exam results with him. It can be done later. Yeah, you can attend the interview and follow up with the medical results. It's not normally the way things work. And in fact, some embassies and some doctors, would you believe, try and stop that happening. But it is possible to go to the interview first and then follow up with the medical results, or indeed to follow up with missing documents. If you go to the interview and you forgot your birth certificate or something like that, you can follow up with that later. So you can and should attend the interview even though you're missing some documents. But better than that, don't be missing the documents. Don't be missing the medical. get all those things properly prepared before the interview. Please take a little bit of time to do that. But it is possible that some people don't have their police certificate, for example. There's some good reasons why people are delayed getting some of the documents they need for their interview. And in some cases, the doctors are just too busy to see you before your interview, and so then you have to follow up with your medical. That just happens. Lay, I just found out about what you do from Reddit, literally 20 minutes ago from Reddit. Cool. And as I was watching your videos, you went live. Wow. Thanks so much for your efforts. Genuinely, it's people like you that something. Hopefully that's a nice something. Oh, keep the world going. My number is under 30,000. So would you please advise me on what to do going forward? Yeah. So congratulations. Yeah, as you probably have read from Reddit or from watching my videos, I sued the government, spent a fortune, so that you and others could get your chance. The wife is miserable with me about me spending the money, but it doesn't matter. Of course it matters. I said that's wrong. Of course my wife matters. But you know what I mean. Okay, so what do you do now? So your first step is going to be to fill in the DS260. You've got a great number. It's under 30,000. I mean, we don't know yet, as I was just explaining, we don't know how many selectees there are for this year. And so I can't be 100% certain, but if you've got a case number under 30,000, you've probably got a pretty good chance of getting your interview. So I would suggest, yeah, go ahead, fill in your DS260. Take your time. If you Google the words Brit Simon, DS260, completing DS260, you'll come to an article, a blog article of mine, which goes through the DS260 in detail and shows you how you answer all the questions, right? So unless, I mean, you don't need to do that. If you're good at answering forms, etc., you're used to forms, you can go ahead on your own. Just be very, be 100% honest and answer the questions. Don't second guess, oh, they don't really need this information. For example, some people go in there and they're like, oh, they don't really need to know all of my education. I'll just give them my high school from age 16. No, the question says, give us your secondary education, all of your secondary education. That means you should list all of your education from about age 11 or 12, age 11 in the UK, right? And the qualifications need to continue up until, in the UK, the education level you need to meet the requirement is A level. You basically need, with the UCAS points, the UCAS points needed to get into a university, I think is about 170 or 160 or something UCAS points from 3 A levels. I think you can do it with 2 A levels as a minimum, but you do the A levels and assuming you get the right passes, you're qualified to enter the university. That is the exact level you need to be equivalent to a US high school graduate. A US high school graduate, kids here leave school when they're 18 years old, roughly, and they're able to then immediately enter college or university. They call that college here, but they're immediately able to enter that university because they graduated from high school with the appropriate results. That's the point of education level you need, right? So if you've got a bachelor's degree and you went on to university from sixth form college or whatever, and you've got your A levels, then you probably meet the requirements automatically. If you don't meet the requirements through education, you can meet the requirements through work experience. So once you've thought about that and you think, yeah, my case number is good, I meet the requirements either by education or by work experience, right? And there's a specific article I've written about work experience. Again, you can Google the words Brit Simon work experience and you'll get to an article that explains about work experience and how you qualify. But once you figured out, yeah, my case number is low, I meet the requirements, either education or work experience, go ahead and fill in your DS260, and then you just wait. You wait for that to be processed, and you wait for your number to be current, and then you'll be interviewed. With a case number, let's say 25,000 or something, you'll probably be interviewed in, let's say, spring or early summer of next year, something like that. Okay, so, oh, Charlotte, So another UK person, 52,000. We don't give the exact precise number, Charlotte. It's not really a problem to give the precise number, but you're at the 52XXX range, 52,000, right? It's a bit high, Charlotte. It's a bit high. It's a bit risky. You're essentially going to need EU as a region to go current. They probably won't sort of make the high case numbers to the UK current by themselves. That's another really, really tiny possibility, but I don't think that's likely at all. You're going to need the whole region to go current, and that's not very likely. So, Charlotte, this might be the thing where it's going to become a bit of a hollow victory for you. Yes, you'll have been selected, but just like the people at 189,000 and 170,000 and 150,000, the only thing that you're going to get out of this is the joy, if you like, of you were selected in the DV lottery once, but you're probably not going to get an interview. That probably is what is going to happen with your case number, unless EU as a whole goes current, right? So sorry about that, Charlotte. You'll learn more about that over the coming days, and feel free to ignore my perspective. I'm not always right. I'm wrong about some things, so maybe I've misunderstood, but I don't think so. Do you think for South America, says Mr. Saul, the cases will move faster as they have confirmed they wrongly selected for Cuba? My case is 3937. This was another impact for my lawsuit. During my lawsuit, I showed evidence that they had selected Cuban selectees that shouldn't have been eligible for the lottery. I included that information not because I wanted to attack the Cuban selectees, of course, but because it was another piece of evidence that showed that they had screwed up the process. It was another piece of evidence that actually allowed me to piece together exactly how they'd screwed up the process. And that helped me prove my point that the UK had been left out. So they've now contacted the selectees from Cuba and said, you're not eligible to participate. And they've made that announcement publicly as well. The thing we don't know, Mr. Saul, is we don't know how many Cuban selectees there are, right? We know that Cuba is normally one of the highest number of selectees for the South American region. But most people in Cuba would have realized that they were ineligible and they wouldn't have even participated, right? Some people didn't realize they were not eligible and they participated, and some of those got selected, but it won't be as high as a normal year. So we don't know how many of firstly, we don't know how many selectees there are in South America as a whole. So we don't know how badly over-selected it is. Therefore, we don't know how high your 39, 37 case number is. It's probably pretty high, but we don't know how badly high it is because we don't know the number of selectees. We also don't know the number of Cuban selectees that are now going to be ineligible, right? So we'll have to figure that out. We'll be able to tell a little bit more. I think in the coming week we're going to get selectee numbers, and we will know more about that then. But there's lots for us to figure out. Okay, let me take some more questions. Right. Oh, you're very welcome, Charlotte. Welcome for the info. Yeah. I'm thrilled UK entries are selected, but I'm pissed off at the government at telling people such as yourself, Charlotte, that you're a winner, only to dash your hopes later on. I mean, and it's not just you. There are going to be many people, hundreds of people would have been told you're a winner, and they'll have ridiculously high case numbers. So it's like, I think the position is dawning on some of those people that actually it's just going to be a hollow victory. And that's, in my opinion, that's a cruel thing for the government to do. And it's because of their stupidity and incompetence that they've done that. So anyway, I'm doing the best I can to inform people what will actually happen, right? Okay, Blaggers, yeah, I understood. When did the UK become eligible for DV applications? First year was DV 25. So there's been 2 years when they've been eligible. They were not eligible for the previous 20-something years. My brother, funnily enough, got before the current day version of the lottery. there was a sort of an early version that ran in the early 90s. And during that lottery process, my brother and some of his friends actually got their green cards that way. My brother has lived in America since the early 90s. That's what began my sort of love affair with America. And I started to work here and came over in the 90s and the 2000s and eventually emigrated here in 2014. I was coming on H1 visas before. So in 2014, I got my own H1 visa in February. And then in September the 2nd of 2014, I got my green card. I'm now a citizen of the USA, a dual citizen, actually. But anyway, so it became eligible this time around in the modern day version of the DV lottery, which has been running since, I think, 2002 or 2003, thereabouts. It became eligible for the first time in DV25, but they managed to screw it up, the government, and that's why I sued them. So, can one credit card be used for payment for more than one person? Yes, I'm pretty certain that would be fine. It's the way agents will enter their payments. I'm sure they'll take the $1 fee from individuals and they'll pay that fee through a credit card. There's no problem with that. The payment system is not necessarily going to be linked to the individual in terms of making sure that the individual pays their own fee. I don't think there's going to be any requirements about that. Okay, I'm in the UK with family from Kenya working and win DV case. Can I ask my case to be moved to the UK embassy from Nairobi? Absolutely, yes. If you are resident in the UK, so the rules recently changed, and so what they're saying is you either will interview in your country of nationality or in your country of residence, but the most usual thing is the country of residence. So if you're a resident in the UK, you make sure your DS260 has your UK address on it, and that's it. You'll get scheduled in London. It's not complicated. They don't want to send people all over the world. They want people ideally to interview where they reside. Okay. Is the passport required? We don't know yet. We have to wait and see. Hello, Britt Simon. Thanks for informing how to unlock DV25 from Nairobi and subsequently transferring my case to Cotonou, Benin. I'm now in the United States. God bless you for helping people. Dominion, I'm pleased you listened to the advice. Nairobi did okay, but yeah, there were some people that, their case number, if your case number was above above 30,000 or something, or 28,000 in Nairobi, you didn't get a chance. And that's why I was telling people to move. And thank God, some people like yourself did listen, and now you're living in the USA. So good luck, congratulations. Did you say on another video you hadn't seen numbers as high as the UK? Is there a chance that they gave the missed UK applicants notified after your lawsuit a new batch of numbers? Ogbod, no, that's not what's happened, because there are. I've now heard from entries from all number ranges from 4,000, I think is the lowest case number I've heard. I've heard 12,000, 14,000, 20,000 something, several in the 40,000 range, some in the 50,000 range, and cases all the way through to 189,000. 189,000 is the highest case number I've heard of. But there are people with case numbers all over that range. So no, at one point, I think some people were thinking that they've only given high case numbers to the UK, and they would somehow run the UK numbers in a separate track or whatever. That's not what's happened. They've simply given too many people in too broad a range the news that they're winners, when actually they're not going to be winners, right? That's what's happened. I'm 100% sure of that. There's no question at all about that. Okay, I know this process extremely well. I knew it well enough to know when the government had screwed it up. I knew it well enough to be able to write an affidavit that showed exactly how they'd screwed it up. I know this process back to front. There's no one who knows. I mean, frankly, it's arrogant as hell to say so, but there's no one who knows more than me about this process, including in the government, apparently, because they don't know what the F they're doing. So no, I know 100% is not what you're suggesting there, Ogbod. Okay, I wish it was like that, but it's not. Thanks for taking time to answer and sharing your knowledge, Simon. Much appreciated. You're welcome, Plaggers. Hi, Simon. Can you elaborate on the name entry, for example, if my name has two names, A and B, in my birth certificate? In this case, I do not have the third name, C, surname, which appears in my academics. There are some countries where where you take a sort of a grandfather's name and that sort of thing, and I can't tell whether you're from one of those countries. But generally speaking, the names in your birth certificate normally would include your surname. The surname in Western terms is what Americans call the last name. It's typically the family name or the last name. In the UK, we called it surname. And so, it would be like if my name was Simon Britton. Britton isn't really my last name. You people know that, right? But anyway, if my name was Simon Britton, Britton would be my family name, right? My last name or my surname, that's what it would be called. And Simon is my given name. My parents gave me the name, Simon. In different countries, there are different ways of operating that, right? And in some African countries, people tend to give a family name to that person that isn't part of their official legal name, right? In the DS260, there are ways to fill that in. So you put your legal name in the DS260, but there's another section that allows you to put other names that you've used, which can be aliases and can include some of the things like that extra name that you've tacked on there for your education certificate. So make sure your DS260 has that extra name in that additional names used section. Okay, it's not part of your legal name. If it's not on your birth certificate or your marriage certificate or whatever, it's not part of your legal name, but you can refer to it because it's a name you've commonly used. Okay. All right. Hi, Simon. Why 2NL is waiting DV26 and why US Embassy in Kigali is closed? I don't know why Kigali is closed. And DV26 2NLs, I mean, every year, this happens every single freaking year. And it's still a surprise to a lot of people, but October, November, December are quiet months, right? It's worse this year because they've managed to break the system that sends out the 2NLs. But generally speaking, these first few months are quiet months anyway. So, it's normal. And this is a 12-month process. You don't need to freak out on day 4 of the first month. Hello, Britt Simon. Is there any possible problem with laminated documents, please? In some countries, it's common practice to laminate documents, but in those countries, the embassies typically distrust or have a mistrust of those documents because it's a way of covering up some sort of fraud. I don't quite know. I can't tell you about what every embassy says about laminated documents, but in some countries, it's a problem. You can only your best way of finding out is to email the embassy and ask them if that's a problem and ask them whether they want you to provide non-laminated documents. Okay. I know why people do it because documents are easily damaged, but generally speaking, in the country I was brought up, we didn't laminate those documents because those documents are not, exposed to the elements and that sort of thing. Hi, Brett. What's my chances of getting an appointment for case number 2026 EU 15,800 from Ankara Embassy? What countries should I consider moving to given the case transfer bans, Vienna, Hong Kong, etc.? Well, you've just said it. There are case transfer bans, right? They don't want you to move your case, and so they're making it more difficult for people to move. They announced this new policy just a few weeks ago that you have to interview either where you reside or where your nationality is. That's extremely bad news for some people that live in countries where the embassy, such as Ankara for Turkey, has been doing a piss poor job of scheduling all the cases. So I don't know whether that instruction that we saw to us as the public also came with another instruction to the embassy saying, get your act together and interview all the people that are entitled to interview in your embassy, please. So I don't know how Ankara is going to behave. I can tell you that in previous years, your number would be in big trouble for Ankara because Ankara has not been scheduling that many cases. Dominion, you give me, let's see, how do I get to that? I don't know how this works. I see Dominion, you've given a donation, which is lovely of you. Thank you, $5. And you're asking a question. Hello, Simon, once again. Yes, my DV25 case number is high. AF28K, there you go. And that's why you weren't scheduled at Nairobi. Transferring saved you. Yes, you were on the cusp. So you made a gutsy, ballsy decision, and that's why, and that's the difference between people. Some people make their own luck, and that's what you did, Dominion. You listened, and you took a decision, and you made your own luck. So well done, you. Good luck. And people that make their own luck, by the way, do very well in America. All right, so you'll do fine. You'll do very well. Hi, sir. I'm asking, is DV Lottery 27 postponed? Postponed, the word postponed means late. It is by definition late, yes, because it would normally have been opened already. So yes, it's postponed, but it's not been postponed with any announcement. We don't know when it's going to start, right? So we'll see. I'm curious about the education requirement because in the UK I have 5 GCSEs rather, and apparently that is not the same as high school diploma, but it did an online US high school diploma with Excel High School. Okay, that's a problem. So Begman, are you, okay, so obviously because I'm British, I know about the UK education. GCSEs, you finish up at age 16. It used to be called O-levels when I was a kid, right? But used to have CSEs and GCSEs. So you went to O-level and you finished school at about 16 years old. There are some countries in the world where they reach, university standard by about 16, 17. The UK is not one of those countries. And even though I would say, and I'm bound to say obviously because I'm British, but I would say the UK education is better than the USA, I would say that a 16-year-old Brit is not educated to the same level as a 18-year-old American, right? And a Brit would need, therefore, to go through the A-level system to be allowed to enter the university. Now, if they entered a UK university and did a 3-year degree, that, in my opinion, is better than the 4-year degree offered in the USA, where kids start that at 18 years old. So it's a little bit of a mismatch between the two countries, but 16 GCSEs is not going to meet the requirement by itself, right? So you then have to think about your high school diploma with Excel High School. That isn't going to help you. In the rules of the DV lottery, it specifically excludes what they call make-up classes or things equivalent to the GED. The GED is like a testing out so that you can go through college education, university education, even though you didn't meet the high school requirement. It's like a test that you can test out of. So the high school diploma that you did with Excel High School, which I assume was online or something, won't be considered a formal education route. So the other thing is, okay, what work do you do? Do you have 2 years of experience gained within the last 5 years before the interview in a job that requires significant professional expertise or education or training to perform that job, right? So are you a manager of staff? Are you a programmer? What job do you do? There are various jobs that will qualify you through work experience only, not education. If you want to know more about that, Begman, Google the words Brit Simon work experience, right? And it will explain how the work experience and education requirements are met. Okay, Google that article. It's a pretty good article I wrote several years ago, and it's still current today. Okay. Hi, Simon. Visa was approved. Thank you so much. Planning to travel soon. Good luck. Do you think my case number SA2615 will be called this period? If so, when? Well, South America started at 1850, right? So your number isn't that much higher than that. So yes, you'll probably get current. As to when, I don't know. The 1850 was crazy high. It wouldn't surprise me to see the number repeated or frozen for a few visa bulletins. So maybe, spring of next year or something before your case number is current, okay? Perry, hi Simon, about $1 pay. How do we pay? Which method do you use? I'm in Kenya. I'm not in Kenya, so I don't know exactly what methods would be available to you, but you probably go to an internet cafe or something, do the DV lottery application there, and they'll help you with the payment. Probably something along those lines. We aren't 100% sure they're implementing the $1 fee for DV27. We have to wait and see that. Okay. Another one of these pop-up donations. Thank you for that. I'm going to answer your question now. Hi Simon again. I think that's probably why I'm a terrible YouTuber. I should probably be doing better on this, but I guess that's why people are encouraged to donate, and then that will get my focus on that question, I guess. I don't know. Hi Simon again. My case is at embassy in Riyadh now. Didn't add high school degree in DS260, but added university. Will that be an issue? If your case number isn't current, like right now, I would actually suggest you unlock. You are supposed to show the education route that shows that your university education, you got there through the normal traditional route if you're British. So yes, I would personally suggest you unlock and include your education. The question said all the secondary education. Secondary education is from about age 11 or 12 upwards. I would prefer that you had that education properly documented in your DS260. If you are about to interview or something, if you're already scheduled for interview, then don't unlock. I'm not saying you will be refused if you don't have that. It's just better to have a smoother ride by correcting your DS260 if you can. Okay. I am 2026 OC 350 case number, and I sent my DS260 end of September. Any hints on interview dates to be expected? Because you sent your DS260 so late, that's going to introduce a delay. I don't know how long that delay will last. OCers typically get pretty fast processing through DS260 processing. The KCC seem to allocate resources by region. So there'll be a team of people working on OC cases, a team of people working on Africa cases. And I've noticed in the past that OC cases tend to be processed a little bit faster than other regions. If you're from Australia or New Zealand or somewhere like that, then there's little to no concern about background checking and that sort of thing. There's no terrorism there. There's no, anti-American sentiment. Maybe a little bit anti-Trump sentiment, but nothing, too bad. No biggie in terms of your processing, and therefore you might go fairly fast. But I can't be 100% sure of that. You have to wait and see. Okay. Somebody that has a passport from a banned country, Togo, and a second passport from Nigeria, not eligible, can still get a visa. Yes. In that case, your eligibility to enter the lottery was because you were born in Togo, right? But you also hold a second passport from Nigeria. So Togo is banned, but Nigeria is not banned. And the travel ban specifically says that if you hold a passport from a non-banned country, then you can process, even though your first nationality is from the banned country. Okay, so yeah, you can do that. Any update on Nairobi Embassy Performance DV26? No, we don't have any data yet. So I've got rumor and that sort of thing, but I don't have the exact data. We won't have SEAC data, which is the real data. We won't have that until January the 1st. Okay. What would have to be there in the upcoming visa bulletin to demonstrate the possibility of EU going current this year? Nothing. There is nothing that they can put in there that demonstrates that EU is going to be current this year. That isn't how it works. People tend to assign importance and future predictions based on the month-to-month visa bulletin numbers, and the people that do that are not very well educated about this process. That is not how it works. So there is literally nothing that will be in the upcoming visa bulletin in terms of the numbers that will indicate the future performance of how the visa bulletin numbers move on. The only thing that could be in the next visa bulletin is the selectee numbers, right? I'll show you that. I'll show you what I mean by that. Visa bulletin Yeah, right. So let me show you this quickly. So I shouldn't have said nothing in the visa bulletin will give us a clue. There is something, but it's this. Okay, so if we look at the visa bulletin for September of 2024, which was actually published in August of 2024, at the bottom of that visa bulletin, there's a breakdown of an explanation of the DV25 results, giving the number of selectees per country for each region, right? You can see that, right? That information would normally have been published in the visa bulletin that was published in August of this year. It wasn't published then. And it wasn't published in the next visa bulletin either. And the reason it wasn't published, I now believe, is because of my lawsuit and because they realized that they had these numbers wrong. Because in DV25, for example, if we look in Europe, where's Europe? Oh dear. In DV25, there was no Great Britain. There's Northern Ireland, but that's not part of the UK or Great Britain. And so it should have said UK or it should have said Great Britain, right? There was nothing there. That's because they made the mistake in DV25, right? And in the same way, they were supposed to be publishing the DV26 numbers, selectee numbers, and they didn't post that. And so that's why, that's why I think it's going to be, because of the lawsuit and because the announcement of confirming that my allegations were true. Because of that, I expect now the government to release the corrected visa bulletin numbers, which will take Cuba out and add UK in. Now, the way I took your question to mean, I think what you were meaning, I think what you meant is like about these numbers, right? So these numbers change every month. That, by the way, that's what current looks like, right? That's when the region goes current. That's what happened in DV24. Africa was made current. That means every case number in Africa, and Africa went current, therefore, to a case number 122,000 or something. I mean, it was a ridiculously high number. And this is the one that went to 50,000 for Europe, right? But these numbers, there's nothing they can put in the visa bulletin that would tell me, okay, they've increased the number from 7,750 in EU to 15,000 or 10,000 or 20,000. There's nothing they can put in that number that allows me to say, or anyone to say, well, mathematically, they're now going to get to this point by the end. You can't calculate it that way. Okay. Hope that makes sense to you. Okay. It's been a long session already. Let me just take a few more quick questions. I know we've got a lot of new people here because of the UK winners, so I wanted to answer some of those questions, but I'll answer a few more questions, see if I can get as many of these done as possible. But also, if you have a question that I don't get to, you can ask that question at britsimonsays.com. Okay. I have a United Bank for Africa debit card. Can I pay for the photo service on it? I don't know, Morris. I think so, but I don't know. I don't know the United Bank for Africa system. There are about 195 countries in the world. I don't know the banking systems of every one of them, strangely. 195 countries in the world that participate in the DV lottery, I should say. Usually, how much time for my DS260 submitted in September to be processed? Case number 4,000. Yeah, it can vary, so I won't even sort of give a usually number. Based on my specific situation in Kenya, what is the best green card pathway for me? And what are the main risks or challenges I should prepare when applying next schedule? I don't know your specific situation in Kenya. Do I know you? I don't know. You're asking me for comments on a specific situation. I don't know. I don't know your specific situation. Okay. Hi, Simon from Sierra Leone, banned country, but I have a second nationality passport. Good. Case number is in the 78K range. Do I need to fill out my DS260 form? Your number's a little bit high, but we don't know how high that really means, right? Because we don't know how many selectees there are. If I were you, I would wait until at least we've seen the visa bulletin numbers, which will probably be in the next week or so. And when I mean the feasibility numbers, I mean the selectee numbers. And then you might want to wait until we've seen the data on January the 1st to see how many cases are in front of you at case number 78,000. We will know precisely how many cases are in front of you, right? And we can begin to make some estimations. But, you know, it's up to you. But that's what I would do, okay? Hey, mate, an odd question, but I reckon that you've thought about DV more than most. Yeah, I think that's probably true. What's your view on the new $1 fee, both the potential impact to entry numbers as well as the broader principle? I was horrified by the $250 fee that was suggested in the big beautiful bullshit bill. I thought that that was very unfair, because $250 was a ridiculous amount of money to pay for a lottery process that is for people around the country, around the world, where many of those people earn very, very little money. $1, on the other hand, is not a lot of money. Now, I fear that it's the thin end of the wedge. They'll introduce a $1 fee this year, and then that fee will start to increase over the next few years, right? And we'll see that increase to $2 and $5 and $10 and $20. I fear that they will try and increase those fees, right? If Trump or a similar sort of leader is if Trump or a similar sort of leader is in charge, I fear that that will be the way. That's one way that they can discriminate towards more attractive immigrants, right? But $1 on the face of it, just taking it at face value, is not bad. It may discourage some fraudulent entries, and it may reduce the chances that they have to increase the fees for those people that go through the process. The process costs money to operate, and the $330 with about 60,000 people being interviewed raises about $20 million or something, right? And that's probably not enough to cover the cost of the program. So by introducing a $1 charge, they equalize a little bit the cost of the program and avoids that $330 going up to $500, $600, $700. So in that sense, I think it's a good thing. The possibility to reduce fraud, because I think it will probably stop some agents speculating, and registering a bunch of people if they've got to pay $1 each time on a speculative gamble, as it were. It may avoid some of that. So I think that's a good thing. And it's not a lot of money. So in general, I'm kind of in favor of this $1 fee. A little bit mixed feelings, but yeah, in general. Okay. Sorry, Britt Simon, is it correct? Hi, Charlotte, again. Is it correct? I can apply for 27 if I've received notification to complete the DS260 for 2026. Yes, you can apply for DV 2027. You don't get any benefit from your previous application as far as DV 27 is concerned, but there's no bad impact caused to your DV 2026 application or any other application by you entering the DV 2027. So there's no harm. No harm can be caused by you entering into DV 27. Okay. Simon Riak, I've heard that everyone must apply in their country of nationality. No, not true. That's not what you heard. You've heard that wrong. What about South Sudanese going to Nairobi for DV interviews? Yeah, that's right. So if you had read the announcement properly, you'd have seen a few things, right? Firstly, they said they prefer people to apply in their country of residence or country of nationality, not just country of nationality, like you said, but country of residence or nationality. They also then went on to list a number of countries where the home embassy of those countries is not available. It's closed for whatever reason. And in those cases, people have to go to a different country. And there's a list of those embassies and those countries affected, right? So no, it can be country of residence, country of nationality, or in some cases, another country designated by the government as being the place where these particular cases should go. Like, for example, Afghanistan. Afghans are not able to interview locally, so they are required to interview elsewhere. Okay. Samuel, I hope you're well. Could you kindly tell me when the DV lottery will begin? Also, is an affidavit of support is required at the embassy stage? I'm from Nairobi, Kenya. So we don't know the exact date of the DV lottery entry, but I suspect it will probably be mid-October start. Probably in a week or two it will start. I think we'll probably see an announcement about the entry period in this next week or so. I'm hoping so. We'll see. An affidavit of support. Just to cover that, again, I think it's probably important to read this proper detail. But if you Google the words Brit Simon I-134, okay, letter I 134, you'll come to a blog post which is something like all about the I-134 or something. The I-134 is the affidavit of support you're talking about. There are two versions of affidavit of support. One is the I-864 and one is the I-134. The I-864 must not be used by DV lottery cases. It's for other cases. And the DV lottery can use the I-134. The I-134 is not required in every case, but in a lot of cases, if they feel that you will become a public charge in America, then they will ask for proof that you won't become a public charge, which could be in the form of either your own savings. If you've got a bank account with $20,000 in it, that can help. Or it can be through an affidavit of support completed for you on your behalf by a legal resident in the USA. That resident should be a green card holder or a US citizen, not a temporary visa person. And that person is sort of promising to look after you, although it actually is not legally enforceable. Unlike the I-864, which is legally enforceable, the I-134 is not legally enforceable. It's just a sort of a promise, and it sort of gives them some comfort. Will it be asked for in Nairobi? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Depends on the particulars of your case. Depends on, for example, if you've got a very lucrative job, let's say you're a software engineer, they might say, he's going to get a job over there. Let's say you're a doctor, they're going to say, he'll be fine. Don't need to ask for an I-134. Let's say you're a lumberjack and you're moving to a big city in America, not very many lumberjack jobs. They might say, oh, this guy might run out of money. He might become a public charge. So that's why they would ask. I don't know. Do you have many lumberjacks in Nairobi? I'm not sure. Probably not. How can you check if your case is processed? You email KCC. Simple as that. You email them and they give you an answer. Usually within 1 or 2 days, they'll give you an answer. Hi, Simon. One more question. On your screen, please show me and demonstrate which places are the best for immigrants to live in the USA and why. Wow, Simon, that's a big question, right? America is a very, very big place, and we all have different priorities when we come here. I lived in the UK and was pretty comfortably financially and work in the software industry. So for me, I could have lived anywhere in the USA, but the most attractive place was Silicon Valley, in Northern California. So that's where I live. I live just outside of San Francisco. And where I live, there are a lot of technology jobs. The weather is fantastic. It's very expensive to live here, but the salaries are very, very high. And so, it's good. And politically, it's good. The California government, the state government, offers a lot of additional protections and so on for its residents above any other state, frankly. There are some other good states. Texas has got some good places to live in. Florida is good with a cheaper cost of living, but a bunch more idiots. There are some places I wouldn't recommend. I wouldn't recommend you go to some of the sort of the poorer states in the country. But it really is a very personal decision, right? If you've got kids, you care about the education system in your area. If you're coming from a warm country, you probably don't want to be in the north of America, the northern states of America, because they get bloody cold in the winter. Really cold. I mean, the cold in America is like unbelievably cold in some of these places. I wouldn't live there for all the money in the world. Do you care about seeing the coast? Do you care about climbing mountains? Do you want to snow ski in the winter? Do you like to live in a big city or a small city? What sort of hobbies do you have? There's so much, right? And so for me to say, yeah, this is a good place to live, that's a good place to live, it's too much, right? A lot of it is to do with, have you got any friends here or family? Are there people that can support you? Is there an easy way to sort of, get ready to live here? There are some things. I mean, it's a very important decision. Don't get me wrong. It's a very important decision. There's another, I've said this before, it's kind of mean, but there's another YouTuber that talks about DV lottery, EBM Scholars, right? Ernest is his name. Nice guy. And he's got a very successful YouTube channel talking about all sorts of things apart from DV lottery, but he also talks about DV lottery. But he chose to live in, where is it, Missouri or something. And he bought a house, nice little house, very nice place, which has gone up in value. He bought his house there almost exactly the same time, within a week or so, as I bought my house here. He paid something like, I think, $200,000 for his house, $200,000. He could afford that. That was great. His house is now worth $270,000. So he's made $70,000. I paid $1.4 million for my house, right? But my house is now worth $2.8 million, roughly. So, yes, I moved to a much more expensive area. Yes, it was more difficult for me to afford to buy that more expensive house. But my salary that I get paid from my daytime job as a software engineer, I'm an architect, software engineering architect. My salary is significantly higher than in the other states, right? So, when I'm earning money, I'm earning money at a rate far, far higher than in other states. And so therefore the cost of living in this area, where I'm paying $5 for a gallon of gas rather than $4 for a gallon of gas or something, or I'm paying, $2 million for a house rather than 200,000, to me, it's worth it because I've gained a lot more equity in my home. I earn a lot more salary, a far higher salary. And those things were important to me. I can now, in my later life, I can say, okay, I want to retire now. Where do I want to retire? Do I want to retire where I live now? Or do I want to move somewhere else? So if I take my equity from my house, I take $2 million or something out of my house and I move to Spain, for example, I can live like a king for the rest of my life in Spain on peanuts, right? Or I can move to Florida, or I can move wherever the hell I want. And everywhere where I will move is cheaper than where I live right now, because where I live right now is a hotspot for software engineering, and that's why it's expensive to live here. So big question. I could spend hours talking about this and explain it in many, many different ways, but it's a very personalized question. It really depends on your situation. Okay. Wow. I can see I'm not going to catch up with these questions. Let me just have a quick scan through, see if there's anything. Okay, this is a good question to answer because a lot of people in this situation. I've messaged KCC and my interview is around 18th of November, but I can't see it in DV entry status check. Correct. So there is this glitch that's the problem, right? And it's not around 18th of November, it's on the 18th of November, but you don't know the time of day that it is. But that's November. That is 6 weeks away from now, right? So calm down, because in the next 6 weeks you're going to get that confirmation. So no problem. No need to be worried about that. It's a nuisance. It's not how it's supposed to be working. It is broken. The system is broken, but it's not about your case. It's all cases are suffering this problem at the moment. But you've got 6 weeks, so you're fine. Same person. Answer that. Let me see. I can see there's some repeats there. Is there any news on the travel ban, or should we forget about this lottery thing? Well, I don't know which country you're from, Dooney. I don't think the travel ban is going to be removed anytime soon. I know some people thought it was going to be removed on September 9th because that was the 90-day review period. That was a silly idea that it was going to be removed. They did not implement this travel ban in order to take it out 90 days later. They didn't. They want to ban people, right? This administration, are not good people. And they love making life difficult for people who are a different color than them. And that's basically what it's about. And so, the travel ban is probably here to stay for at least the foreseeable future. Will it go away in a few months? I don't know. I hope so, but I just, I don't have high hopes of that, I have to say. Okay. Hi, sir. My case number is EU 16956. Should I fill up the DS260 or forget it? Your number's great. No problem with your case number. What can you say? 2NL. Yeah, there's a possibility you'll get your 2NL, right? I would email KCC if I were you in that case. Nat Nail. Frederick, I used Photoshop to create a lottery photo, but AI flagged it as too bright and generated a corrected version. Do you think the AI edited one is acceptable? Risky. The point of my app is that it leaves the image of the person unaltered. You must not edit in any way the image of the person. Some people misunderstand the rules and they think that you can't edit out the background. You can edit the background, but you mustn't affect the person. So in this corrected version, has it corrected your skin tone? Has it changed your skin tone? Will you show up to the interview and you're obviously a different skin tone than the person in the photo? That would be a problem, right? So, you don't want to do that. I would suggest you take it easy, be careful with how you create the photo. And for the sake of a few bucks, wait for my photo app and get it done properly, okay? Cosmic Sparkle says, thank you for the lawsuit. I got the email too. My case number is EU 16956. Oh, okay, good. So you were just asking. You got a great number. Yes, fill in your DS260. Congratulations to you. Make sure you drop me a line on BritSimonSays.com. Ask me any questions you want there. Yes, you got your result because of the lawsuit, which is great. And this is proof, by the way, to the other people who are asking, are there only high case numbers? Your number is pretty low. One of the lower cases I've heard of, probably, a number of people around about your case number. But yeah, this is proof that we've got cases at all number ranges, right? Yours is a good one. Don't forget it. I mean, if you wanted to move to America, I mean, do you want to come here? I mean, it's not a perfect time in America. We're about to go through some rough years, I would say, but you have to weigh it up and say, okay, is America fundamentally a good place to live? And it fundamentally still is, even though the current administration are making life a little bit more difficult. Quick question here from a donation. So, hi Simon, I applied wrong. I was born in Netherlands, but accidentally applied based on born in the UK. I made a mistake and got selected last night. Leah, I've already answered you on my blog. I know about your case. You told me that you did that. I've given you an answer saying, yes, you can probably still be approved. You made a mistake with your country of chargeability. You said you were born in, or you said you were chargeable to the UK when actually you were born in the Netherlands. But because the Netherlands and the UK have an identical chance of selection in the lottery process, you didn't gain any advantage at all through the draw, right? And the CO will probably know that. There was a DV25 case, a UK DV25 case. So one of the people that I spoke to and I had Zoom calls with, and unfortunately that person did a similar thing to you, but they were born in Turkey and claimed to be born in or chargeable to the UK. That case was rejected, even though Turkey is within Europe as far as American DV lottery world is concerned. Turkey is part of Europe. And so you would say to me, well, why did they get refused? And why are you confident that Netherlands to the UK would be okay? Well, Turkey has a restricted or limited number of selectees chosen during the draw process because so many people from that country apply. And so their chance of selection is actually reduced below that of the rest of the European countries. That same thing cannot be said for the Netherlands. So your chance of selection is identical to every other country in Europe, apart from those countries that are limited, like Turkey, like Uzbekistan, and possibly Ukraine, and possibly Russia. So because you were in a non-limited country, your chance of selection is the same. And therefore you should be absolutely fine, right? I'm answering this other question from Leah, I think it is. So anyway, so you'll be fine. And I suggest you go ahead and fill in your DS260. Okay, let's see. Oh wow, we've got loads of repeated questions here. Don't do that, please. Okay. This is another good question to answer because people have been worried about this. I was emailed by Sydney Consulate on 310 saying to respond within 24 hours to confirm the interview for November. However, I've not received my 2NL by KCC with date and time. So email Sydney and tell him that, tell him the problem that you've got a glitch. You're a victim of the glitch that is with KCC's 2NL system. Don't worry about this 24 hours thing. That's kind of nonsense. They're scaring people. I don't know why they're doing that. But it's not that you will have your interview cancelled. I mean, it should be fine. They've changed their rules a little bit to have a slightly different procedure. They want documents 30 days ahead of time. So that might cause an impact. Again, I don't know quite why they're doing this. But anyway, contact the Sydney Embassy, and they are normally pretty good at answering emails, right? So they will get back to you. Okay, if there's an 189K in the UK, does it mean that there must be case numbers between 55 to 189 given in the EU, which would make the case of 70K in Zarthis true? No. Okay, so you've looked at the poll. That's good. The 70K, the numbers we see in the poll do not include the UK numbers that have just been added, right? So there's in the UK poll, let me show you the poll. Let's go here. Let me show you what I'm talking about. DV26 poll. Yeah, there we go. Okay. What you're talking about here is, when we look at this is a survey or a poll taken from a bunch of responses. We had 874 reports in total. 309 of those reports were from European cases, right? And you'll see that there are consistent number of entries up until about 50,000. This little block here is between 48 and 49,000, right? Then there's this single entry here from 56 to 57K and a couple of entries at 70K. Those cases were all there before the UK entries were added in. It does not mean that European cases go to 70K. This, I'm pretty sure, is a mistake. And this is a mistake. So 3 people who don't read instructions well or think it's funny or something, I don't know, who gave us these responses, but they're not real. They're not real numbers. And we've done this poll before, and this worked out the same way before. So I believe that the actual highest numbers is probably going to be about 48,000 in Europe. I'm calling it 50,000 for round numbers. And I'm therefore treating this number and this number as bullshit. There are UK numbers from 0, from number 1 or whatever, theoretically, up to 189K. That's simply that they didn't turn off the selection system, but that means they've selected 4 times as many people as they should have done. It doesn't mean there are 4 times more entries in these ranges. It means they went 4 times the number range up to 189, or I'm calling that 200K. So that's why there are more winners. But no, it doesn't validate this number at all. This number will turn out to be bullshit. I'll put money on that. Okay. That's what you're talking about there. Okay. Is this recorded? Yes, you can go back and see. You can replay this, even though it's a live Q&A. You can go back and replay it. Most people do that, or a lot of people do that. Actually, a lot of people play my videos at speed and a half. So I'm talking really fast. So yeah. Okay. Let me have one more question or something. Oh, Dominion, that was your question donation from earlier. I appreciate that. And that was also a question from earlier. I appreciate that donation. That's very kind. Wow, there's a lot of unanswered questions today. I'm sorry about that. And then a lovely thank you. You're incredible there from Mahmoud. That's lovely. And that was the question from Leah that I just read. That's it. The poll doesn't show the UK as a country within the EU region. Will that be fixed? Probably. Zarthisius, who did this poll for us, listens to this. I could ping him and ask him to fix it. But it will kind of confuse things, right? So I'll talk to Zarthisius. I'm not sure I even want it to be fixed, but I'll speak to Zarth and see what he says. But I already know what the UK numbers are going to look like, right? I already know the high point. That's really what this poll does for us. It tells us the number of range that are selected within the region. I don't really want the UK numbers to go confuse things, if you see what I mean. Okay, couple more questions and then we'll call it a day. Is it worth asking KCC about our high case numbers? I point it out or ask if it's even worth bothering. No, a complete waste of your time asking KCC. Firstly, KCC won't give you sort of personalized answers. They give template answers, and there is no template for your question. Secondly, they are not in a position where they are able to adjudicate any cases. KCC cannot tell you if your TS260 is correct or incorrect or whatever. That's not their job. They will not tell you that information. And thirdly, KCC don't know what the fuck they're doing. That's, they don't know. They won't know what the hell you're talking about. If they knew what they were doing, they wouldn't be making some of the mistakes that they make. So I'm sorry, KCC, and I'm sorry, Director McIgnol of the KCC, but you're running a clown show, and you are. So so that's unfortunate. But no, they won't know HyperKid 0. They won't know. They don't understand. They don't understand the numbers as well as we understand them. Okay. Right. I think I'll probably. Let me just take this question. I'm EU 42,500. Is there any chance for us this year, sir? Okay, so last thing I'll say then, this will be the last question I take. Basically, we still have to find out the number of selectees, right? Are there 40,000 people selected in EU, or is it 20,000 people, or is it 50,000 people? Have they selected 130,000 people globally, or 140,000, or is it less than 100,000? We just don't know, right? We also don't know the number of people that are selected that are going to be impacted by the travel ban. Now, the travel ban in DV 2025, if we took all of the travel ban countries and we add up all of those travel ban countries in DV 25, there were almost 30,000 people out of the 130,000 selectees who were travel banned, right? But it came very late in the year, so it didn't affect all of those people. It affected some of those people. Some had already gone through the process. In DV 2026, we are starting off with the travel ban in place, right? So the travel ban will affect everyone. Well, how long? Or sorry, everyone in those countries. So maybe it will affect 25 or 30,000 people again, right? Which would make a big difference in the overall global number of selectees. Big difference, right? If 25 or 30,000 people cannot process, or rather cannot get their visas issued, then that should, in theory, make it easier for higher case numbers. But there's a couple of problems with that theory, in that, number one, those people can be entitled to interview anyway. We've heard it in this live from some people who are from a travel banned country and they have a second passport. And so because KCC don't know that, they have to process every single case, whether that person is from a travel banned country or not, and that person is entitled to go to an interview, and we can't really predict what the outcome will be. We also can't predict if the travel ban will be taken away at some point in this next few months, right? And depending on when that's taken away, if it happens, it could allow more people through. But if the travel ban stays in place, it affects mostly the region of Asia, right? Asia is very badly affected by the travel ban. The travel ban includes Afghans, Iranians, Yemenis, and so on. And that's a very high percentage of the people in Asia. So Asia, which is the third biggest region in terms of issuances, Asia is very badly impacted. Africa is also quite badly impacted. And so Africa will get a big dent in their number of selectees because of the travel ban, right? Now, there is a rule within the lottery process that says that if region A doesn't use all of its visas, then region B, C, D, and E can use those visas, right? And so it means that although there is a quota for each region, the actual number of visas used by a region can increase because one of the regions or two of the regions don't use their visas. So if Africa, which is the biggest region in terms of issuances, if Africa doesn't use its quota because of the travel ban, and if Asia, which is the third biggest region in terms of the issuances, if Asia doesn't use all of its visas, then the biggest beneficiary of these wasted visas that are wasted because of the travel ban will become EU, right? And so EU might get a helping hand. There's only one country currently banned in the EU from the travel ban. So EU might get a helping hand from all of those wasted visas in other countries and in the other regions. South America and Oceania could also benefit from that, but not as much as EU, because it's just the way it works out in the formula. And so EU might get a big help, right? So along with the fact that we don't know how many selectees there are in any of the countries or any of the regions yet, that's a big problem that we don't know that. We also don't know what the impact of the travel ban will be. We don't know what the impact will come from our president and his nutcases running around like a bunch of idiots and making this country unattractive to move to. We don't know what that's going to do to people's desire to move to America, right? So there's lots of things that are going to make it difficult for for me to predict, or for anyone to predict what will happen in this next 12 months, right? So so yeah, it could be a wild ride that we get. Maybe some of the things I'm saying in terms of, okay, case number 189K has no chance. Maybe that will turn out to be wrong, right? Because if Africa underfills and Asia underfills and the travel ban stays in place and and people are unhappy with coming to this country in the current political climate, then maybe EU goes current. And if EU goes current, if that has the word current rather than a number in the visa bulletin in July, then that case number at 189K in the UK could get a chance, right? And certainly your number at 42.5 could certainly get a chance, right? But it really starts from how many selectees do we have in EU and in other countries, and how many selectees are affected by the travel ban and so on. We have to have all those bits of data. Otherwise, we can't. We're just guessing, right? And I don't want to guess. Okay. All right. So sorry for the long-winded explanation there, but I'm hoping that by giving you a bit more information, I'm hoping it sort of it makes sense, right? All right, everybody. Appreciate you joining me for this morning. It's been a long session, 2 hours, 30 minutes. I've got to go and ride my bike. So I'm going to go, and appreciate all of you being with me. Give me a thumbs up if you liked the video, please. That helps with the algorithm or something. And make sure you're subscribed. If you're from the UK or a recent winner, please do subscribe. There'll be a lot more information coming out over the next few days and next couple of months, right? So, I'm more than happy to answer your questions either on the YouTube channel or preferably on BritSimonSays.com. All right, everyone. Cheers now. Bye-bye.